For thousands of years, the land we now call Iran has stood at the crossroads of civilizations. Long before modern borders existed, this vast plateau of mountains, deserts, and fertile valleys served as a bridge between East and West. Traders, armies, scholars, and travelers crossed its ancient routes carrying not only goods but ideas, languages, religions, and power. Yet one of the greatest misunderstandings in world history begins with a simple question. What happened to Persia? Did it disappear, collapse, or vanish into the past? The truth is far more surprising. Persia never truly disappeared. It simply changed the name by which the world knew it. To understand how that happened, we must travel back thousands of years to the origins of the people who first shaped this land. Around the second millennium before Christ, groups of Indo-Iranian tribes began migrating into the Iranian plateau. They were nomadic peoples who spoke early Indo-European languages related to those that would later develop into Greek, Latin, and many European tongues. Their culture, beliefs, and social systems slowly transformed the region. Among these tribes, two groups became especially important: the Medes and the Persians. The Medes settled in the northwest and quickly built a powerful kingdom that dominated the region. The Persians, meanwhile, settled farther south in a land called Pars, a relatively small territory that would eventually give rise to one of the greatest empires in history. At first, the Persians were not the dominant power. They were simply one tribe among many living under the shadow of stronger neighbors. But history can change quickly when the right leader appears. In the 6th century BCE, a Persian ruler named Cyrus rose to power. Known to history as Cyrus the Great, he transformed a small kingdom into an empire unlike anything the ancient world had seen before. Cyrus defeated the Medes and unified various Iranian tribes under a single rule. Yet, his greatness did not come only from military success. What made Cyrus extraordinary was his approach to governing conquered peoples. Most ancient empires ruled through fear, destruction, and forced assimilation. Cyrus chose a different path. Instead of destroying local traditions, he respected them. Conquered nations were allowed to keep their religions, languages, and customs. Temples were restored rather than burned. Exiled populations were allowed to return home. One famous example was his decision to allow the Jewish people who had been exiled in Babylon to return to Jerusalem and rebuild their temple. This policy created loyalty instead of rebellion and helped stabilize a rapidly expanding empire. Under Cyrus and later rulers like Darius the Great, the Persian Empire grew to astonishing size. It stretched from the Indus River in the east to the Mediterranean Sea in the west, from Central Asia in the north to Egypt in the south. At its peak, it controlled nearly half of the known world. But the Persians did more than conquer land. They built one of the most sophisticated administrative systems of the ancient world. The empire was divided into provinces governed by officials known as satraps. A vast network of royal roads allowed messages and armies to travel across thousands of miles. Couriers could carry information from one side of the empire to the other with remarkable speed. Taxes were organized, records were kept, and infrastructure connected distant regions into a single functioning state. And for centuries, Persia stood as one of the most powerful forces on earth. But no empire remains unchallenged forever. In 334 BCE, a young Macedonian king began a campaign that would shake the ancient world. His name was Alexander. Later generations would call him Alexander the Great. With a relatively small but highly disciplined army, he launched an invasion of the Persian Empire. In a series of decisive battles, including the battles of Granicus, Issus, and Gaugamela, the armies of Persia were defeated. Within a few years, the vast empire that had dominated the ancient Near East collapsed. Yet Alexander's victory did not erase Persia. Instead, something unexpected happened. Rather than destroying Persian culture, Alexander began to adopt it. He wore Persian royal clothing, married into Persian nobility, and integrated Persian officials into his administration. He realized that ruling such a massive territory required more than military power. It required legitimacy in the eyes of the people who lived there. Many of his Macedonian soldiers disliked these decisions, believing they had come to conquer Persia, not become part of it. But Alexander understood that empires survive through adaptation. His death in 323 BCE changed everything. Without a clear successor, his empire fractured among his generals. One of these successor states, the Seleucid Empire, controlled much of the former Persian territory. Over time, however, local Iranian dynasties began to reassert themselves. The Parthians eventually pushed out the Seleucids and restored Iranian power in the region. Later, the Sasanian dynasty rose and rebuilt a strong Persian empire that rivaled the power of Rome. Under the Sasanians, ancient Persian traditions were revived, and Zoroastrianism became the official state religion. Persian art, architecture, and scholarship flourished once again. This revival lasted for centuries until a new force emerged from the Arabian Peninsula in the 7th century. The rapid expansion of Islamic armies changed the political landscape of the Middle East. The Sasanian Empire fell after a series of battles against Arab Muslim forces. The region gradually became part of the Islamic world. Islam spread across the population, and Arabic became the language of administration and scholarship in many areas. Yet even under these new conditions, Persian culture remained remarkably resilient. Instead of disappearing, Persian identity adapted. The Persian language evolved into what is now known as Farsi, incorporating Arabic vocabulary while preserving its own structure and heritage. Persian scholars, poets, and scientists became some of the most influential figures of the Islamic Golden Age. Writers such as Ferdowsi preserved ancient Persian myths and history through epic poetry. Persian administrators served in governments across the Islamic world, spreading their cultural influence far beyond Iran itself. Over the centuries, many dynasties ruled the region, including Turkic and Mongol powers. Yet Persian culture continued to shape the identity of the land. A major turning point came in the 16th century with the rise of the Safavid dynasty. The Safavids unified much of the Iranian plateau under a centralized state and established Twelver Shia Islam as the official religion. This decision permanently distinguished the region from much of the surrounding Sunni Muslim world and helped shape the religious identity that continues to define the country today. For hundreds of years, outsiders referred to this land as Persia. The name came from the ancient Greek word derived from Pars, the original homeland of the Persian people. However, inside the country, a different name had long been used. That name was Iran, meaning land of the Aryans, or land of the noble people, a term rooted in ancient Iranian languages and identity. For centuries, both names existed side by side. Persia was the name known internationally, while Iran was used domestically. This dual identity changed in the 20th century. In 1935, the ruler Reza Shah sought to modernize and strengthen his country. As part of his efforts to reshape national identity and project a more unified image to the world, he requested that foreign governments begin using the name Iran instead of Persia in official communications. It was not an attempt to erase history, but rather an attempt to align the international name of the country with what its people had long called it themselves. The change was significant but controversial. Many historians, intellectuals, and artists believed that abandoning the name Persia risked disconnecting the country from its ancient heritage, a legacy associated with Cyrus, Darius, and one of the earliest great empires in human history. Others supported the decision, seeing it as a step toward a modern national identity free from the exoticized stereotypes that Western narratives often attach to the word Persia. In the decades that followed, the name Iran became firmly established in global politics and diplomacy. Yet the older name never truly vanished. Today, Persia often appears when people speak about the ancient empire, classical literature, art, carpets, and the rich cultural traditions that developed over millennia. Iran, on the other hand, refers to the modern nation-state that emerged through revolutions, political transformations, and complex international relations. Both names describe the same land, the same civilization, and the same people whose history stretches back thousands of years. One reflects the memory of ancient empires that once ruled half the known world. The other represents the modern identity of a nation navigating the challenges of the present. Together, they reveal something deeper about history itself. Civilizations rarely disappear. They transform, adapt, and continue under new names, new rulers, and new circumstances. The story of Persia and Iran is not simply about a name change. It is the story of continuity across millennia, of a culture that survived conquest, religion, and political upheaval without losing its core identity. Empires rose and fell, languages evolved, religions changed. But the civilization that began on the Iranian plateau continues to shape the world even today. And in many ways, the ancient spirit of Persia still lives quietly within the modern nation called Iran.